The East India Company colonised and ruled over India in the 17th and 18th century. This video looks at a new phase in Britain's rule over India. It also looks at the significance question, which is worth 8 marks. Now we're going to start off by looking at what caused the 1857 Indian Rebellion. Now the cause of the rebellion, or the spark as it may be known, was down to the cartridges on the new Enfield rifle. Loading these cartridges was complicated and they needed grease to slide down the gun easily. This grease was said to be made from pork or beef fat. Muslims do not eat pork and Hindus do not eat beef. Bearing in mind that soldiers needed to bite off the top of these new cartridges, this meant that the Indian soldiers would get pork or beef fat in their mouths. On the 9th of May 1857, 85 sepoys in the northern city of Meerut refused to use them and were arrested. The next day, a group of sepoys killed their British officers, freed their fellow sepoys and set fire to the local barracks and British homes. Other sepoys rioted in support. Soon the whole of northern India was engulfed in rebellion. Now the British government had some experience of fighting to try and keep hold of its colonies. It had fought and lost the American colonies in the 1770s. But before 1857, it did not expect to see the disobedience, defiance and chaos caused by local natives who weren't white. It was war. The battles fought in places like Delhi, Cawnpore and Lucknow were fierce and brutal with bloodshed on both sides. In July 1857, 200 British women and children were massacred at Cawnpore. The British were not only desperate to get the situation under control, but they wanted revenge and justice to be served to the rebels. Around 70,000 British troops were sent to India. They were well armed with the latest Colt revolvers imported from America. The British were ruthless at getting revenge. When some Muslim mutineers were captured, they were sewn into pigskins and then executed. Another punishment administered was to strap the rebels across the barrel of a gun, which was then fired. So what were the consequences of the Indian Rebellion? Well, peace was finally resumed on the 8th of July 1858, but the rebellion shocked the British. A British defeat at the hands of the sepoys had always been a possibility during the rebellion. Many politicians in Britain had no idea that many Indians hated British rule to this extent. The event made Britain reassess how it would control India and the empire in future. No British colony that was populated by people that were not white had launched a rebellion as fierce as this before. Britain would refuse to give up their rule in India and instead decided to rule directly from the crown. The East India Company was replaced with a new viceroy that was put in charge of India on behalf of Queen Victoria. Britain realised that it could no longer interfere or undermine Indian religious or cultural traditions anymore. Many jobs in local government were given to Indians. Universities were built in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras in an attempt to make India into a hub for education. These institutions were based on the prestigious British universities like Oxford and Cambridge. Britain tried to make itself a model for India in terms of education, justice and democracy. This was a different way of thinking to before the events of 1857. So here's our exam question, and it's an 8 marker. Explain the significance of the Indian Rebellion on the development of the British Empire. Let's structure our answer. The Indian Rebellion of 1857 was significant for the development of the British Empire in the short term because it secured India as an official colony. Evidence to support this is that the rebellion led to the establishment of the Raj, an official sovereignty in India. The East India Company was removed and Queen Victoria was given the official title of Empress of India. India remained a colony for around 90 years. The rebellion ended the rule of the Indian aristocracy, which meant ultimately that India became the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. This shows that the rebellion was significant in the short term because if the British had failed to crush the revolt, it might have sparked off the spirit of rebellion in other colonies such as Australia or New Zealand. In the long term, Britain had to change its outlook on India and the Empire. Britain could no longer interfere in local religious and cultural traditions because it did not want another rebellion on this scale. Britain did not want to look like being brutal in their ruling over India, but wanted to offer new technology and methods of organisation that would make Indians be content with British rule. Railways were built all over India to improve transport and communication. Universities were built in Calcutta, Bombay and Madras to improve the standard of education and to replicate the traditions of Oxford and Cambridge in Britain. In addition, vaccinations for illnesses such as smallpox and malaria were introduced to try and improve medicine and public health. However, the fact that some historians see the rebellion as a first war of independence suggests that it could have made future independent campaigners like Gandhi believe that breaking away from Britain could be achieved. I hope this video has been helpful. As I said earlier, I hope to come back to do another video where we finish that 16 marker. But in the meantime, stay safe and stay healthy.